specialist and got into Rutgers and then got my environmental science degree from there, and that's how, my present career, I'm a health and safety specialist, and I do a lot of hazmat stuff at Rutgers, and that's, but I know I got off track on a tangent, but yeah, that's how I chose the Navy, and
Would any of your father or your grandfather in the military?
Both were. My grandfather was actually during World War II, when Poland was invaded by Russia. They basically put my father, his two younger siblings, and his mom, my grandma. They put him on a cattle car out to Siberia for a prison camp, and they said we don't, we basically need him because he has some useful skills. We needed him, so they basically took my grandpa and they said, you're gonna, come with us, and they sent him to Russian OCS school because he was an officer, and they said, for some reason he had some information that could help them because, Stalin at the time was very paranoid, and he killed a lot of the intelligentsia officers, and if you were, he's paranoid that, people from other countries that he wanted, just his people, right? So the Cotton Forest, the massacre in Cotton, that was all, a lot of the officers and stuff in the Polish army were killed, out there. So basically, my grandpa, for whatever reason it was, he survived the war, and my father and his siblings and his mom, she worked in like this working camp, and they survived. And when they came back after the war, my grandma went to Warsaw and said, I'm going to see if I can find, see if he survived the war. She didn't know if her husband survived. And as it did, as it worked out, that Grandpa did survive, and then they raised, they gave him a parcel of land. The government did, because at that time Poland was communist bloc,
right.
And basically Russia had, changed the maps and stuff, and basically all the land where they grew up in, that wasn't their home anymore. They got a parcel of land in the mountains somewhere that it was like kind of rocky terrain, not the fertile farmland where they grew up. But my grandpa raised 5 kids in that area near the Czechoslovakian border, not far from there, and that's where my father's from, but that's a whole different story. But my father served more during peacetime as a tank driver, tank operator, worked on his own tank, and but back then, it was not a major war was going on, just kind of like me, where I served primarily during peacetime.
And what years did you serve?
I served from 85 to 89 was my active duty, and I did several years of reserve time where I would drill. My reserve weekends were either Perth Amboy, down at where now the ferry to Tottenville used to be there, but it used to be a reserve center there, and then we started drilling at Naval Weapons Station Earl down the shore, and then it got to the point where it was kind of like it seemed every week I had a drill weekend. I had another sister's wedding or something. So I was like, this is getting crazy. I said, and I kind of didn't re-enlist as far as my reserve time. But so I think I have a combination combined between my 4-year enlistment in active duty and reserve time. I probably have close to 10, 11 years, combined. But then,
What were your ranks?
I went in as an E1, which is I was a fireman, because I basically was a snipe. I worked under below decks on the ship in the engineering spaces. So if you were above, you're a seaman, and if you're below decks, you're a fireman. And there's also an airman if you were working on planes and stuff. But I was a E1 fireman, and then I went up to fireman apprentice, which was E2 after 6 months, and then E3, and then E4 was you had to take a test for your trade, your skill. So that was all the electrical stuff and the equipment that I worked on, and that's I got promoted to E4, which is petty officer 3rd class, and then when my time was I was eligible, I took the test for E5. And that's the petty officer 2nd class, which was my final rank, and it's equivalent to a sergeant, like in the Army. And so basically I got out, went in as an E1, I got out as an E5, and I didn't really, think about, you couldn't wait, I was on a ship, so I floated around, on 6-month deployments. You'd hit an occasional port here or there, but a lot of time out at sea, and we couldn't wait to get out, you start your civilian life. That was like I put in my time, and I saw the world, and now I'm, more mature, and I'm ready to, go to college or start my career in another field, whatever. I'm ready. I couldn't wait to get, and it wasn't until a long time afterwards where, I started going to college, and then one of my aunt's neighbors was Gene Wiesek, was past commander of American Legion Post 214, and a dear friend to this day, and he lives in Delaware now, but he was my aunt's next door neighbor, and he was like, hey, Sach, you need to join the American Legion, and another friend's dad was also a member, and we'd come after softball games, we would go down there, and they'd say, hey, it's pizza night, or they'd be making their own little pizzas, and we'd go down there, and then Gene got me to join. He said, you should join, you're a veteran, and they were trying to get, some younger members, and so I joined, and then, of course, it was just like any organization now, it's kind of hard, it's a different world, and back then, when veterans, came back from war, and serving overseas, the VFW and the American Legion were places that, like, safe havens, where they would go, and then you didn't have to talk about, your service or war, or a lot of times, things would come up, but you didn't have to talk about, all the negative things, but it was just like a bond that, you share with your fellow servicemen, people that served, and I didn't get it till I was much older, where then I started like, man, I couldn't wait to get out, but now I miss those buddies that were my brothers for 4 years, that, that I was away from my family all that time, but they were, we used to fight in our engineering space, we'd fight who got to mark off the day on the calendar. It was like, because it was like, we're like, oh, we're this much, this many.
Training.
Okay,
let's take you back to basic training and see,
basic training. So,
what was that like?
So a lot of my friends, were going away to college. I graduated and spent that summer with, did a lot of hunting and fishing with my friend Kenny Nielsen, who also, he went into the Navy about the same time, a little bit before me. And he went in to the Seabees, so he served. He was, and he basically. So I knew my date was right after New Year's, January 3rd of '85, and I knew that. That was so. So my friends, of course, talked my father into, hey, you got the finished basement, we should have a going away party for Staj, go. And of course, my father was, he was like, oh, okay, reluctantly agreed, and then till the next day, on New Year's Day, he's picking up beer bottles all the way up to the Old Bridge Turnpike, all the way up Leonardine Avenue, and he realized maybe it wasn't such a good idea. He was like, because the social butterfly of a son that I have knew everybody in this town, and so everybody wanted to see me off, and it was it was a great time. So by the time I sobered up and I woke up, it was, I'm in San Diego, and I'm getting screamed at by a Filipino chief on the bus that I got on. I thought I got on the wrong bus. I thought I was in the Filipino Navy. I did not know that there was a very strong, Filipino population on the West Coast that were, back in the day, that was, the part of the Philippines was very, there wasn't a lot of work, and those who could get jobs in with the Navy did so, and they started off as porters, and then there was a lot of, in my field, in the electrical part of stuff, there was a lot of good electrical, supervisors that I had over the years were from the Philippines, so there was a strong, so I basically spent the first 7 months of my enlistment in San Diego, which was my boot camp, my BWE school, which is basic electronics school, then my ICA school, and then you got your orders. You filled out your dream sheet, they called it, and where you wanted to be stationed, what base, so a lot of guys were putting Mayport, Florida, and one guy thought I was crazy when I put the Norfolk, Virginia. I said, are you crazy? He goes, that's like the biggest base, and it's like, I hate it. One of the guys was like, I hated it there when I was there, because he went to school, he went in as a non-trained guy, and then he got schooling afterwards, and he was telling me, he goes, I just want to be close, close to New Jersey. I hadn't seen my sisters and my brother for how long, so I ended up getting, it worked out great for me. It was the base called Little Creek Amphibious Base, and it was basically all the amphib people, the Marines, the Navy, that, I was a gator freighter, and it basically served on an LST, which stands for Landing Ship Tank, and we basically had a tank below it was an oversized canoe. When you looked at the ship in the shipyards, and we'll show pictures, I'm sure Neil will show them later, it's basically looked like an oversized canoe.
This was your ship?
Yep, that was the ship, yep.
It is? And what was the name of the ship?
It was the USS Spartanburg County. It was named after a county in South Carolina, and that class of ship, that it was LST 1192, and that class of ship, they were all kind of commissioned in the same area in the early 70s. I think ours was 1970, and basically they were named after different counties. There was a Fairfax County, and Sumter County, and I can't remember all of them, but there was a bunch of them that shared some pure spaces with us, and it was good because the base was right next to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, so when our duty station changed over and you had, once a month, you had a full weekend off. My buddy had a car, I didn't, and he didn't have a family close. He was from Minnesota, so he was like, let's hop in my car and let's go visit your family. So it was a 7.5 hour ride, down Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, into New Jersey, and we did that quite frequently, and he got, he got my sisters, and my brother got another sibling, and he got 5 more or 6 more siblings.
Family members.
So yeah, and he was from a family of 7 out in Minneapolis area, and I was from a family of 6. So we had an instant bond, and to this day he's one of my closest,
That was my question, if you're still friends with him.
Yeah, and he hasn't made one of the reunions. We were getting ready to have a big reunion down in Nashville, because one of our buddies lives down there with his wife now, and he thought it would be a good change of scenery, because we had a couple in the Virginia Beach area where we were stationed. But this reunion was supposed to happen, and then COVID happened, so everything started getting postponed, and then it finally got canceled. So I think we're shooting for next summer, so I'm really looking forward to that for those friends that are still alive, and a lot of guys have expressed interest that are, not just the guys that I served with, but guys that served on the ship earlier, since its commissioning. If guys, whoever can make it, is invited, and we're really looking forward to doing that reunion.
Did you stay on that ship, or were there any other ships?
No, that was I spent my entire enlistment when I wasn't in schooling, training for like different electrical schools that I would take in the Virginia area. Once I was assigned to the ship, then most of the time I was pretty much, it was considered sea duty, because a lot of people say, well, can't you have work on the shore? Well, Navy, it's kind of like, I think it was back then, it was 4 and 2. If you did 4 years sea service, then you were eligible to put in for shore duty, like maybe 2 years, for which makes sense, because everybody would want to be on shore. Nobody wants to go away for 6 months at a time. But that was part of when we show the jacket later, I'll show you we were part of the 6th Fleet, and it was
Here it is.
yeah. So
This is a beautiful jacket.
Thank
Look
you.
at this. Oh my gosh.
so it's basically.
Tell us about the symbols here.
This is called a cruise jacket, and basically it's common, among sailors when you serve on your ship. You get patches and flags of the countries that you visited, and here we have the United States Navy 6th Fleet, and this is the unit that I was part of. And basically we were in the battleship that was in our battle group was the USS Iowa, and that was an awesome experience too, when we pulled alongside her, and I've since, I spent my a recent birthday on the decks. We had a meeting for one of the alumni associations I belong to, and they had it on the deck of the USS New Jersey down in Camden, which is the same class of ship as the Iowa. So I got to see, the closest I came to the Iowas was when they pulled alongside of us and they shot the guns, to show, it was just an incredible experience, and to sort of be on the USS New Jersey. It was like and on my birthday, I spent my 50th birthday on the USS New Jersey, so I thought it was pretty cool.
That's so nice. And what about the patches?
Yeah, and the patches are basically Jamaica. I believe this is Denmark. This is Norway. This is Cuba. We have U.S., Italy, France, and I think this is Portugal. Or that's Spain. That's Spain. I think Portugal's on. Or I didn't. But Portugal.
And that's everywhere you were.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And I was in.
Let's show the back here too.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Because this is really beautiful. They issued you this jacket?
No, you had to. This was you had to buy it, and you basically customize it to USS Spartanburg County 11 LST 1192, which was the whole number, and South River was you would say your hometown, home state, South River, New Jersey, and basically I threw Portugal's not on here because although we hit Portugal on one of the med cruises that I was on, I didn't get to leave the ship because it was my duty day, and they only spent one day in port in Lisbon. Lisbon, Portugal was the port that we hit, so I got to see it. I got to wave. I got to wave to it, but so I didn't feel it was I earned that spot on the jacket. So I said I only put the ones that I actually visited. So and it basically says Jamaica was one of the ports we hit. Guantanamo Bay. Cuba is where you do all your firefighting training. The ships go there and they do all these drills, battles, missile hit forward, missile hit, general quarters, all these drills and firefighting skills that you develop if during wartime something happens, you're ready. So I did several GITMOs. It's called Guantanamo Bay. It's for short. It's GITMO. And basically Jamaica was one of the ports we hit when we were there on our way back. And then North Atlantic in 1986 was the first cruise that I went on, which is basically the battle group split into two, and one half of it went to the ports they hit during that. That was a fall deployment, and it was the North Atlantic, and we went to Denmark and Norway, and the other group went to London and England and Ireland.
Well, that was a story you were
Yeah, and that story I was saying. As a young kid, as a teenager, I was growing up in the 80s. I graduated in the early 80s, and so it was like I was looking forward to. They said you're going to Ireland and London, Ireland and England, and that it was already announced. So we're like all jonesing and fired up to go to these clubs, these punk rock clubs and whatever, London, because you just saw it on TV. And I said that, and then they came back that whether the other CO outranked our captain or whatever, but they said there's a change of plans. There's a change of plans, and you're going to, you guys are going to Denmark and Norway. And I wasn't happy about it because I was looking forward to, pumped up that we were going to get to see the nightlife of London and Ireland, pubs and that's all an 18-year-old kid is thinking about. But in retrospect, when I got to see the beauty of Norway, our ship was small enough till we went through the fjords. We went up through the Kiel Canal through Germany, and we got into the fjords of Norway. And I was telling you earlier that God, if what I wouldn't have done to have a smartphone back then, the pictures that I could have taken.
Oh my God!
Because
you have some pictures here.
We have some pictures, but they're all with a 110 camera, so
let's take a
the
look.
quality's not what
you got.
What you got now.
This is beautiful. You showed me these pictures, and they're still beautiful. And you had an interesting stories on some of these, so tell us about.
So this is one of the ports we hit was Genoa, Italy, and it's this is I believe this is some of the architecture, some of the postcards, some of the pictures that I didn't take, some of the pictures, they have beautiful postcards of the architecture and
See, it's great that you saved this and you
Yeah.
put this album together.
Yeah.
Because now you have all the memories behind it, which is beautiful.
And you have a lot of memories, in your mind and, your memories, but it's nice to have something tangible, and I hadn't picked this up in a long time, so.
And you can share
So,
it.
so it was good. I opened it up the other day, I was, some of the pages are faded but these are, it's,
Now, this is you. And
this is, I'm not, in
this one?
This picture, two of my close friends, Lonnie, my buddy from Lakeville, Minnesota, and Dave Erickson is a Morristown, New Jersey guy, and they're both engineers with me. He was an electrician, like me, and Dave was a diesel mechanic. Our ship was, because of the nature of the business, a lot of ships are either nuke powered or steam powered, or ours happened to be diesel powered. We had ALCO engines, which stands for American Locomotive Corporation. We needed to have that power when like I said, the bottom was like an oversized canoe. So you had to have a flat bottom boat to beach and let the Marines off to do their thing. So all the vehicles, the amphibious vehicles, were released and you had to have the power to get that ship back off the beach, and that's where the bow thruster.
In this picture.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause here's.
Yep, and this is the back of the ship, and there's basically, you can't see underneath the ship, but there was like a hole, it uses the suction, the power of the diesel, and to work this reverse, suction to kind of get the power to pull you off the beach, and it was called the bow thruster is what basically pulled that, that bow.
And this door came down.
Yeah, this is the stern gate, and that's the back of the ship, and so some vehicles, depending on what amphibious assault vehicles they were carrying, would come off that way, and then the other jeeps and stuff that weren't amphibious could go down the front of the ship, which, I don't know if Neil could show the front of the ship. This is here. The front, there's funny looking things sticking out the front. They're called derrick arms, and basically there would be a controller up there that would work the controls of the ramp. The bow ramp would basically open up, and the ramp would extend, from the beach to the shore, and the vehicles that weren't amphibious vehicles would drive off onto land, and the engineers and they could do their thing. The Marines and basically.
Let's go back to that story here, because you got some interesting stories for us.
Okay, yeah, so.
Now, this is you, right?
That's me.
Okay.
And that's my buddy Lonnie.
Okay.
Lonnie Mallory from
see that?
Lakeville, Minnesota. And he lives out on the West Coast now, near
Make sure these stay in.
Nevada.
And tell us what happened.
And so two of my closest friends pictured here, Lonnie and my buddy Dave Erickson from Morristown, New Jersey. At the time, we shared a lot of the common spaces. Dave worked in main control, which is right next to engine room number 1, the main engine room, and my electric shop, the IC shop, was right next door. So we were the same age, and we got to know each other. We became friends, and Lonnie and I were in the same berthing area, and Lonnie was an electrician in my division, so he was the first person I met when I got to the space, and they had just gotten back from a deployment outside of Beirut, and I had gotten back from my schooling, went on 2 weeks leave, came back and to the base, and the ship had just pulled in, so it was perfect. I didn't have to fly me over there, and the ship was done with its current 6-month deployment, but these guys, one of the cruises that we went on, one of the deployments was called a Med cruise, the Mediterranean, and it's usually a 6-month deployment where you're out at sea more often than you're in any of the ports that you got to visit. But one particular cruise, I think was my second Med cruise, I stayed back for an alarm school for that, and it was overlapping with the deployment. So the ship was, by the time my school was wrapping up, the ship had already crossed the Atlantic, so they had to fly me. They flew me to Sicily, and then the ship had just pulled out of Sicily. Then they flew me by helicopter to Naples. I kept on missing it, so finally I caught up with the I missed them in Naples as well. And they said, your ship just left. But because they're not allowed to disclose, exact locations, when I caught up with the ship, it was in Genoa, Italy, and it was nighttime. I walk across the stern gate. That part was opened up, and they had it up so that the ship was backed into the pier. And I walk across the quarterdeck and have my bags, and one of my buddies comes up to me and he says, Stash, he said, we signed you up for a ski trip. And I said, oh, great. And I had skied one time, Camelback, Pennsylvania, I almost killed myself. I was a novice skier at the time, and God, I wish I had that chance to go back, because they said, we signed you up for this trip in the Italian Alps to go skiing. And I'm like, great, I'm 18 and dumb, I'll try it, we'll do, and it was a great experience, but the thing is, we weren't really prepared. Here's me holding out for dear life next to one of I probably fell into the girder, and
how'd you do skiing?
Not so good, but the two guys I was with, Dave spent a lot of time in Vermont growing up, and Lonnie grew up in Minnesota, so they guys were very good skiers, and they had a blast, with white powder, and I was holding on for dear life, and they would point towards the safety fence, next to like a 100-foot drop, or off of it. They said, Stash, ski towards that, and they knew I wouldn't go past 5 feet without falling down. And one time they said they thought, oh my God, he's not stopping. He's going to go over the side of this cliff. But I was like, I had confidence in my ability to fall down, that I wasn't, so we made it back. But it was all part of a bus trip with a nice Italian dinner afterwards.
Oh,
with
nice.
A lot of Italian wines, and a lot of guys, the guys from the South. There's a guy, my buddy Jimbo Griggs' picture here, and if you look real close, there's a bloody, this is my thermal that I lent him, but it has a big blood ring here, because Jim had never seen snow in his life, grew up in the Alabama, Louisiana area, so he figured he'd get some, he'd look up at the mountain. We were getting ready to go up, and he says, I'm not ready. I don't think I want to do this. I'm going to go in the bar. I'll meet up with you guys later.
Oh, no.
So he tied one on pretty good, and then he got his beer muscles and said, you know what? I'm ready. He's drinking his Jim Beam and Coke or whatever he was drinking, and I remember Jimbo was a big bourbon guy, right? So he goes, I'm ready now. So he gets on this T-bar, and you see some of these metal girders. They didn't have the safety padding and stuff that you do here in Vermont or New Jersey or Pennsylvania, the ski resorts around here, or New York State. They have, safety has come a long way. So they have pads on everything. Out there, they figure, all right, you're going to ski the Alps, you probably know what you're doing. Not in the case of a ship full of sailors, right? So these guys that had never seen snow before, he gets on there and he's going up on his T-bar or whatever, and skis got crossed, lost his footing, and now he turns into the human luge. So now he's going a million miles an hour down this thing, and he cocked his head on the girder. So here in this picture, I'm wearing my proud New York Giants had just won their Super Bowl. They had beaten the Denver Broncos, and I picked it up in the Philly airport when they were flying me, to catch up with the ship. So I had that, and I made him wear that hat with his bloody shirt, and I was like, I got to get a picture of this, but they stitched him up pretty good, and
So he had to get stitches in it.
Yeah, he cocked his head over pretty good. And that's what I'm saying. You can't. The picture doesn't really do it justice, but the blood ring went down. A good portion of the. And he goes, here, you can have your shirt back. And I was like, but they, it's like we were talking about, just the guys that a lot of my best friend from South River went away to college at Bucknell University when I went away to the Navy, and he so he had a whole different experience going away to college. He had his college buddies and stuff, and he had his hometown buddies, and with me it was the same thing. I had the guys I served with it was different than like a fraternity brother. It was a fraternity, but they were like my brothers.
Yes.
Like my I didn't have an older brother. Lonnie was a little bit older than me, and I never had an older brother. I have an older sister, and all the rest of my siblings are younger than me. So he was like the big brother. I looked up to him, and he kept us out of trouble because I was a little class clown, a little wired. I was all over the place, and he was like, we didn't follow the masses. The guys wanted to go to the red light district or the dive bars and and live, spend their whole paycheck. He would, hey, let's go to DC, or let's go to down the shore and hit the clubs down there, or go see a movie, or go see a band. And we were big on music, and we did a lot of, we watched each other's backs, and we stuck together. So I had a good experience from and I consider him a brother, to the day I die. He's and several of the guys that I serve with are my brothers. So
that's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's.
But you had mentioned that you had deployments in Mediterranean cruises in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
What was Cuba like?
Well, Cuba, it was hot. It was like I said, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was you couldn't really, a couple of guys.
Do you have pictures of it?
I do not. I don't. There might. Maybe I might. I don't think I do. But it was basically, we didn't leave the base. And it was like the memories of Cuba that I remember, it was because it was hot, and we were wearing all this equipment, and every day in 100-degree heat, 90-degree heat, and you're just doing these drills. So if it does happen, where this could be a life-saving, a difference of life and death, because you got to be prepared on how to keep the ship from sinking and keep survive. If you get hit by a torpedo or a missile, and so basically, I didn't get there was a bowling alley. There was the highlight of my trips to Cuba. There was a cliff that a lot of guys, you weren't supposed to go cliff diving, but we went cliff diving because there was guys from another ship were doing it, and I was like, I want to try that. I was like nervous, but I was like, I hope I don't conk my head on one of these rocks, but I let the other ship do it first, and I said, okay, he survived, so that was safe for me to do it. But that was a pretty cool thing. But it was Cuba. Some of the guys got brave and went into illegally into the country, and then they possibly got into trouble coming back, because it was still Castro was in power, and it was kind of forbidden for us to kind of mingle with that regime. Yeah, basically it was all business for me. It was beautiful, but it was hot.
And what were some of your responsibilities?
Oh, while on the ship? Mm-hmm. Well, I like I said, I was an interior communications electrician, so I worked on everything from the sound-powered phones that, a lot of the time was spent, tracing grounds. Electricians will know what I mean, because a lot of the weather decks, connections, anything on the weather decks would get corroded because your salt water corrodes everything. So that would get into, you'd get, water into some of these boxes, and then you would have to figure out where that is. And so, but during a war condition, you need to be able to communicate, when there's no power, you lose all your electricity, or your engines are down, and the sound-powered phones allowed you, to do a cranking device called a magneto, and that would ring, the buzzer down on a different deck or wherever you were trying to call, and you could talk through the magneto through your voice and these sound-powered phones, and that's how you communicated. And so I worked on that. I worked on the Windbird system. We called it the wind speed and direction system. Basically, the Windbirds were, if I could picture it, it's up on the mast here, right here. These two little things, and basically, it's a little airplane, like a little airplane without the wings, and it has a propeller to tell you the wind speed, and the axis, gives you the direction of the wind. And that navigational heading, that gives you the quartermasters and the captain and everybody the ability to steer the ship. You have your headings and what direction you want to go. So that was, and of course it's way up there.
Oh, you didn't have to climb up.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did.
I had to, because nobody else wanted to, and then it was like it kind of felt to me, and I was like, I was crazy enough. No, it was just kind of like one guy was like, I ain't going up there, and I was like,
how many feet is that? Would you?
I couldn't tell you exactly, but it's pretty high up. It's a good view when the airplanes are landing at the airport, and but the thing is, there was a whole. It was pretty serious business, that part of it, and I loved doing it, but it was a pain to get up there because you had to climb up this little ladder, and then you're up there and you're on this little plank. And I was like, oh my God, it's like a little 2x4. And I'm like thinking, if this thing breaks, I'm tied off to it. So it's going to beat, I'm going to die I'm going to go splat when I hit the metal deck. But then I'm going to, the thing's going to annoy me all the way down to my death, and it's going to paddle me on the way down. But it didn't, it was basically a necessity. I had to go up there every 6 months or so to do the PM on it.
How long would it take you to work on that?
Well, it took me about 20 minutes to get it down. Each limber, I'd tie it off and I'd lower it, take it back to my shop, and then have to lubricate all the bearings and making sure all the contacts were clean. And so, because that was a big part of what we did, we needed that. We needed that as a ship, to be able to, those headings got sent to the ship's gyro compass, which is also my equipment, and that was in our shop. The gyro compass was the electrical, the equipment that basically.
And how many were in your group?
I had a supervisor at E6, a first class petty officer, Chuck Richardson. There was probably about at times 4, 5 guys. Sometimes you had, guys. We were part of a bigger electrical division, which the guys that worked on more of the high voltage stuff, where I worked on more, like the communications equipment and stuff. But it was kind of a primitive ship when it came to it. It didn't really have like super high tech equipment other than the ones that I talked about. And I also worked on the salinity systems, and the parameters of the cylinder temp. So the temperatures of the diesel engines, the electrical, there was this, if they needed to know the temperatures if an engine's running hot. So that was, the electrical part of it was mine. So there was a bimetallic strip that slipped into the cylinder head and basically, gave you, it was a porcelain, the bimetallic strip was wrapped in porcelain, and it went down into the cylinder head, and it got really hot. When there's a problem with this cylinder, I had to climb on top of that engine, and you're like trying to figure out, you have to pull that out. Sometimes the element went bad, or the cable got fried because there was flame shooting out of the one that. So there was like a lot of.
It must have been hot.
Yeah, that was hot. Yeah, so that was hot. So that, and then the salinity cells was, we made our own. We had to, your own, in the middle of the ocean, you have to make your own water, right? So you take that salt water in and you evaporate and then condense the water. You get rid of the salt, and then the salinity cells to measure how clean that water, or what levels of the salinity of the water is. That was my equipment. So that was kind of the some of the background of some of the things I did. But the windbird thing was kind of, not drawing straws, but there was one guy said, ain't no way in hell you're getting me up there. And I said, I'll do it. I was like, got the crazy crazy Polish guy from South River, New Jersey. I'll do it. So I went up there, and the thing is that you had to go to every ship in port. You couldn't do something like that out at sea. You had to do it before the deployment. After, so it was like a twice. I think it was a 6 month. Every 6 months we had to do it. But basically, I would go to every ship in port next to us, and they had to pass the word over their intercom system, their 1MC, and they would go and announce it. There are men working aboard. Men working aloft aboard the USS Spartanburg County do not rotate or radiate any electrical machinery, or radiate. I don't want to get fried up there, right? When I'm up there and somebody accidentally hits a switch, so they have to pass that word every 15 minutes on all the neighboring ships and on aboard our ship, and that was like a safety.
Very important job.
Yeah.
Extremely important.
Yeah, but that was it wasn't
dangerous too.
Yeah, so. But it was something I look back at now, and I was like, yeah, I was the crazy one that went up there. But
so at this point, we want to show your hat.
Okay.
Okay, and you were telling me a little bit about the pin.
Okay, the pin. Unfortunately, I missed this reunion. I was on my cousins were visiting from Europe, and it just coincided where we were in Florida and they were in Virginia at the. It happened the same week. So I missed that, but one of my buddies, Tim Samples, who I look forward to seeing at the next reunion, but he somehow he acquired. I don't know if he made them or had somebody who works in an area that was able to do, little replicas of the ship with the, out of pewter.
That's amazing.
He was able to get one to me. He shipped one to me, and basically the Gator, where the amphibious Navy is called the Gator Navy. I was on a Gator freighter, they called it, right? So there's a ship's name, there's a Gator right there, and the ship's hull number, LST 1192, and we kind of put the pin in the mouth of the alligator there. So that's kind of, the history behind the hat. But I have another hat at home that doesn't have the Gator on it, but that's just bigger.
What do you miss about the Navy?
You know what, the camaraderie and seeing the different places that we visited, and then it all happened so fast. As you're a young kid and you're trying to, you're thinking about, let's go where we're not supposed to go. Let's go have some beers. Let's try the liquor that we're not supposed to, drink. And it was like you had a job to do, and you did it, the best of your abilities, but you had fun, when your downtime. And I lived on the ship. There was guys that had apartments, that had families that lived in off base housing. And I didn't, you made peanuts, at the time. So I was like, I couldn't afford an apartment, by myself. So we had the ships that, the bunks that we lived on, when we were out to sea. And the ship, just to give you a ballpark number, I think we had probably about 250 Navy onboard crew, and then probably I think 350 or 350 to 500, close to, depending on how many they chose to carry, were in the troop berthing for the Marines that we carried, And but it was that number, it might have been like a 250, 350, but they definitely had a lot more Marines. When we were packed with Marines, we were packed with Marines. But yeah, that's.
Did you get seasick ever?
I did one time.
You did.
One time, and it was not a good day. It was not what I made it through Hurricane Gloria, where people were running into each other on the. Bouncing in, stitches, people got all,
Wow.
And I didn't get sick that day. I got sick when I was working my 90-day KP duty, kitchen, everybody has to do their time in the kitchen, whether you're peeling potatoes, whether you're washing dishes. So I happened to be working in the scullery where we washed the steam cleaned the dishes and stuff, and we were doing what's called a dependence cruise, and basically people that had family in the area or wanted to come on board the ship, we were going to go out in Chesapeake Bay, out to sea for a little bit.
That's nice.
And they got to see that. So I was working in the kitchen, and it was a little choppy, but not like a hurricane scenario. So, but I had a greasy slider, a greasy cheeseburger for lunch, whatever, and it was like we were just hitting hitting the waves and kind of. And I'm watching one guy get sick. I'm watching another guy get sick, and I was like, man, I didn't think I was going to get sick, but then everybody around you getting sick. So then I kind of ran to the garbage can. Up came the cheeseburger and everything, and I was sick. They tell you to go get, something, some kind of chips or some kind of pretzels or crackers, to kind of get that, fill that space and get that acidity in your stomach down, calm your stomach down. And of course the ship store nobody had any crackers. They were all sold out. So I went and I figured, okay, I thought it was a good idea to get some chocolate. I got some Snickers and Milky Ways, which immediately came up, and I just suffered. You just got to let it run its course, that night. And I had a couple of buddies bring me stuff, and eventually things calmed down. But that was the one time. And I feel for people that have to take the Dramamine and get seasick. 'Cause I have a buddy of mine that some of us are fishermen or friends that wanted to go out. For his bachelor party, I chartered a boat and went on a big fishing trip. And one buddy wanted to be there, but he knew he was going to get sick, so he spent the whole day, around the garbage can. So I was like, that's not fun, and but so I don't wish that on anybody. But yeah, I did. It did get me one time,
Wow.
Yep.
So, let's see, we have an album here. Is there anything in here that we might want to take a look
Hopefully
at?
nothing incriminating.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, this is...
Here's what we're talking about.
Yeah, this
about
is
your ship.
the front, yeah, so that's a straightaway view moving ahead. So that's the front of the ship, those are the derrick arms, and that's the bow ramp. And you're basically looking out over the bow. And the picture that Chrissy showed earlier, that's the stern. So this is the back of the ship. And this is the very front of the ship looking out as we go. And these are some of the waves crashing over the top.
Oh, here's a good picture.
Yeah, and that's next to the USS Iowa, I believe. And when they pull up alongside it. But if you see a couple of helicopter shots where the I know they're in here somewhere. I think this is the Iowa.
61.
Yep. And here we go. Here's we had a little small flight deck for basically they would bring us our mail. They would bring us you know if you had to ship somebody out for an emergency or something happened. We had this little small flight deck, and I was part of the. It was a little bit of extra pay, and a buddy of mine asked me to join the fire team, so I was on the hose team, on the shipboard firefighting team, and this might be Denmark, or I'm thinking they all kind of run together, or San Rafael, France. I'm not some of these.
It's so nice that you have all these pictures, though, where you could share them. Seriously.
Yeah, and this is my buddy Mark. Chris Pepson, this is actually Mark Pepin, and this is Dave Erickson from Morristown, and this was the Kiel Canal, I think through Germany when we had to go to the North Atlantic. We kind of went through the Kiel Canal to kind of get to the fjords where we wanted to go. I don't know what else, and these are a couple of my buddies. There's Lonnie from Minnesota and James from Oklahoma, James Diamond. And
you stay in touch with them also, right?
Yeah, so through social media, some of the guys are on shoot you a text or a message through social media. But like Lonnie and I talk on the phone mostly. He's not a big social media person, and that's how we get caught up. Via the phone and in-person visits and stuff.
And here's your picture of the Denmark.
Yeah.
So it looks like you were happy you went there.
Yeah. It was a good time. You see my my non-artistic labeling ability for this album is all like you might as well use a Crayola crayon to label it, right? But it a lot of good memories and I'm proud to have served.
So tell me, what was it like when you came back home? What happened? When I got discharged, and I basically it was right around the holidays of it was in early to mid December, and everybody was coming home. My friends were finishing up college, or they're coming home for break. Those that weren't working already, but we were all going to be home for the holidays, and so it was exciting. I was home. Of course, my friends talked my father and say, "Hey, you have to have another New Year's Eve party, for a coming home party for Staj." So again, they suckered my dad into doing that again, and that was a little bit more in control, and we were young adults now, and a little bit more responsible, and it was it was good to see my family again and start that civilian chapter of my life, as a veteran. Terrific. I know it says here your parents gave you the freedom to party responsibly, which is good, but nobody was able to drive home that night.
No, that's, yep.
And that was a night-morning affair, so that sounds like you had a nice party to come home.
Yeah,
it must have been great, the feeling inside.
Yeah, it was good to be home, it was after being away that was what I used to miss, like especially on the West Coast, the time difference, like when I would go and call on like a calling card, a phone card that my family would be coming home from church, whatever, on Sunday, and I would catch them like right, and then they would go down the line. I talked to every sibling, talked to my parents, and it was like that was the highlight of my Sundays out on the West Coast, because I was homesick. It was the first time you go away on a camping trip, or you went away, to Pennsylvania, but it was never,
7 months at a time, or 6 months at a time, and on a opposite coast. So it wasn't like I could hop in the car and see him. So phone calls, back in the day were, that was how.
Did they send you the calling cards?
Yeah, I would get them. I forget what the little AT&T cards, or I had a card, and it was. But yeah, there was sometimes people had these numbers floating around where like, yeah, try this number, and you don't know whose number it was, somebody's corporate number, somebody would get it from somewhere. Stas, use this, and I would. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it was like it was a dud, but however, whatever it took to get in touch with home, and when you're overseas, they had different calling centers too, where you had so many minutes to kind of call home and
good,
and check in, but
good.
But it was
nice.
Yeah.
So so now you're home, and what did you do when you get home?
Now I get home. Now I'm trying to think. What am I going to do? Am I going to work? Am I going to go to college? And so the first couple months, I worked at a Thomas America. They made these nostalgia radios that would look like jukeboxes or whatever. So I had a little tech table that I worked on, and it was a couple of Chinese guys that worked with me because a lot of the electronics at the time came from China, and they had your little workbench, and you would troubleshoot the problems, or the volume control's not working on this. And so I did that knowing that I was already enrolled in Middlesex County College. I was going to go to college, and so when September rolled around, I started, and basically a friend of mine who had gone through the same experience, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go 2 years in Middlesex. You're not going to stick around for your associate's degree. You're going to prove you could do college level work, and then you're going to transfer to your 4-year school. And I applied to Stockton State and Rutgers, and I got into both, and I ended up going to Cook College at Rutgers University, and then I had to decide, what am I going to study? And I knew I wasn't. Electrical engineering would have been, on paper, it makes sense, right? But really, because in theory it made sense, but on paper, I'm not a math person, and engineers, my best friend is an engineer, and he could do, and Lonnie is as well. Lonnie's a math person too, and they could do these calculations in their head that I need, pen and paper to do, and I knew that wasn't going to be a good fit for me. So I said, what do I like? The outdoors. I love to fishing, camping, hunting. I like to be outdoors. I said, let me try this environmental science thing, and that's how I got into environmental science. And what I do now is more hazmat related, and I work for the health and safety department at Rutgers University, and I'm in my 26th year of service, and that's basically not really related to what I did and as a young kid and a young serviceman, but it all kind of helped. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I don't think you and Neil know either. Do you know? Let me know.
I think so. Yeah. I want to win the lottery.
Yeah. There you go. But
so, how did the military experience affect your life?
I think I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, it was an honor to serve. Although at the time, you couldn't, I couldn't wait to get out. I was like, man, it was just, freedom is on the other side. I put in my time with Uncle Sam, but then as more time passed, and the more people that touch your life, when through the organizations like the American Legion, the VFW, I met so many wonderful people from different eras, whether it was World War II vets, Korean vets, Vietnam era vets, or the present day, the conflict, the Iraqi veterans, and the Gulf War veterans, Afghanistan, and it's amazing how many, the bond that you have, and the mutual respect you have, and working with the young people like the Scouts. We don't have a lot of, organizations like ours. We don't have a lot of new members, and it's so when a veteran passes away, we lose that connection, with and with the community, So the Scouts have been great, where the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts, some of our hometown friends that always reach out to me, or I reach out to them and say, hey, we need help changing out all the flags at the 3 cemeteries that, well, we handle 2 and the VFW handles a third. And basically the scouts come out and help us, and the VFW has the auxiliary, the men and women part of the auxiliary help. So whatever volunteers want to help it, but it's, that to me is one of the, Memorial Day, making sure the kids know the difference between, Veterans Day, this is where we celebrate everybody's, we honor everybody who served, and Memorial Day is we honor those who never made it home. So there's a difference, and it's not a happy Memorial Day. It's a solemn day where we honor the folks. Remembrance Day, and basically, but that's one of the things I do as part of the American Legion. Is when a veteran passes away, we do a ritual service at the wake service where we play taps and we honor. We say some prayers, and we say some words about another brother has left us, and or brother or sister, and the same thing. Memorial Day, we go to we visit all 3 cemeteries and honor a veteran in each of those cemeteries as part of the Legion, and that's something that gives me the most joy now as a veteran. And I think I told you the story about the being not worthy thing, where I had my butt kind of chewed by one of the old timers. I think a couple guys. That one of the guys that comes to mind was Billy Matz, and he God rest his soul. He had passed away a couple years ago. But there was a couple guys where I'd say, look, I come in here and I'd say, and I remember Billy Matz, because when I came in there, I said, I'd like coming down here. I said when we had the physical building, the post, and have a beer with one of the guys, and I'd come down there and I said, it's like a history lesson, because this guy's like, oh, you were on that ship? Sit next to me. I was on that ship. And we were talking, there's a stereotype where people think that, they go to these places just to tie one on. But, if you have a beer or 2, that was a lot. It wasn't like you were going there tight. It was the bond that, the camaraderie that you share, because now you see these organizations, there's not the organizations that were around when we were growing up, the Lions clubs, the Rotary Club, there's a lot less of them around, and it's hard for people to get membership, and I could speak for this is my theory of why it's so hard to, for organizations like the VFW and the American Legion, where back in the day, it was therapeutic. When somebody came back from war or from service time, they joined the Legion, or they served overseas. They joined the VFW and whatever. Or some like Ruel, our friend Ruel, is a member of both. And there's a handful of guys that a lot of guys choose to if you are eligible and you're a member of both. But you had that bond, whether you'd have to go down there and talk about we're doing a fundraising breakfast, or you're peeling potatoes, or making pancakes, or what we're together, and it's it was therapeutic to be with guys, and it's guys that suffered a lot during wartime, whether they were part of D-Day. They didn't talk about it, but this was therapeutic. Now a veteran suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder comes back, and he has the ability to get his paycheck electronically, his groceries delivered to his apartment. He can lock himself in his cocoon and separate himself from it. It's not healthy, and it's not therapeutic. He doesn't have that support network, where back in the day it was a little bit more a simpler life, but that was what people did, and I'm not saying one was easier than the other, but now it's just like, so we lose these guys where if they were with us, maybe we could help them get through. It's a way to kind of assimilate back to society and stuff. But again, the story about Billy Matz and about me not being worthy, I said, I can't hold a candle to some of these guys, who served during, D-Day, or served during Korea or Vietnam. It was primarily a peacetime sailor. We went, we had Gaddafi pulling stunts, on his, and you had some stuff going on in the Middle East at times. So we were ready, we were always ready for war, if something happened, if a conflict happened, but it didn't happen really during, so I felt like I was kind of like, lucky in some ways, and I didn't, but the way one guy phrased it, he said, listen, you wrote a blank check to Uncle Sam, when you enlisted, and whether you came home or not, it's not up to you, it's not up to you, and you're here, and you're making a difference now, and you're part of the community, and then for me to be able to do those rituals and change those flags and look at the cemetery Memorial Day, week, and look back at the cemetery and how beautiful it looks, and with all those little flags flying at the graves, and it means something, it means a lot more to me now than when I was an 18-year-old kid floating around, looking to where I was going to go next, not knowing what the future held. But now I have an appreciation for all the guys I served with, all the guys that came before me, and all the guys that didn't make it back, and the guys that that I served in the the veterans that I served with, whether it be Kathy and Ruel and Earl Young, all the guys. I would be remiss if I tried to name everybody, because I couldn't, but everybody's has their own special story to bring, when we have our monthly meetings, and so
It's beautiful. No,
that's
it
how
is.
I
It
stay
really
connected,
is.
and and I look back and people, when people thank me for my service, and they said, thank you for, I always tell them it was my honor, thank you for, for thanking me, but it was my honor to serve, so that's how.
It was beautiful. Really, really nice.
Huh?
And what would you say to future generations, or do you, bring...
I had a cousin, a family friend ask me, I'm thinking of joining the service, or I'm thinking of, what do you, and he was more thinking of joining the Marines, and I don't know what his thought process at the time, but I said, listen, I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect for you, or it's for you, or it's not for you. My personal thought is, for me, I won't say saved my life, but it really grounded me, and I'm so glad it did change my life, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't prepared to work as an electrician, wiring houses. I didn't know if I wanted to do that, and it allowed me to mature and learn responsibility, and learn that other people are counting on you, and you had equipment you had to maintain, and I got over some of the handicaps that I had, where I was, not as physically, mechanically inclined as my father was, but I learned how to use certain tools and troubleshoot certain systems, and gain that confidence in myself to study, to get through exams, and that helped me later on when I went to college, and I was 27 years old when I graduated, Rutgers, but it was, so I used to joke, I'm on a 10-year plan, and it turned out it was the 10-year plan. So from the time I graduated.
And how long have you been commander?
I've been, I was thinking about this the other day. I want to say it's somewhere between 6 or 8 years, and it's, COVID kind of put this,
I know,
time warp on
yes.
things, so a couple of years have passed, so that number may be a couple digits off one way or the other, but I was I joked with the old timers. I said they kind of bamboozled me where I said, oh yeah, Stash, I think you'd be good at it, and I was like, I had a young daughter at the time. Carolina was a baby, and it was and I was like, one guy, Gene would always say, Stash, don't get divorced over this. He goes, there's no beds down here, because it was some, after our meetings, you had to clean up, we had to go over it, we spent a lot of time down there at times getting ready for fundraisers or different things, but it was, like I said, the therapeutic part of it, and my wife, learned to understand the bond and how special that is, for me. But it was hard, with a young, people have responsibilities,
Yes.
and you can't, and some of the old guys were like, hey, I can't do it anymore, we need some of the younger guys to do it, so I kind of, I'm glad I did it. It was tough, in the early parts, because I had to find that balance between my family, where my wife needed help with at home, and I wanted to, help be at two places at the same time. It doesn't always work, but I'm glad, I was able to, to be part of a great organization, and it keeps me connected, and it helps me honor those who served, and even if it's little small things, and that may not mean a lot to some people looking from the outside, but those things that I mentioned, mean a lot to me, and I'm sure they mean a lot to a lot of veterans that have served, before me or are serving
Does the
now.
American Legion go out to the schools now and talk?
We've done stuff, when they invite us, we did something in South Amboy Library a couple months back, where one of our members, Stanley Nowicki, one of his daughters works in the library system in South Amboy, and said they were doing a thing on to honor veterans, and they bring some memorabilia. I think Zeke, our master at arms, he's a Marine. He brought some munitions and different things, little trinkets to show the kids, and I think I brought one of my jackets or something, and Kathy was there. She's also a Marine, and we shared our experiences as Legionnaires, as veterans, and what Kathy did, when she was in, what her job was, and Zeke talked about his time. And there was an active duty Marine who was serving in New York City as a recruiter, and he was coming to the end of his service. He did several tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and now he had a young family and a son that was graduating, I think, South Amboy High School, and we got to bond with him and talk to him, and he had the kids doing push-ups, and he would give them a little challenge coin, a little coin with the Marine symbol on it, insignia on it, and it was cool, and that was a really special day. So when people invite us to do that, it's hard to say no, if I don't have a scheduling conflict, I'll always try to be there. And the other thing, the scouts invite us to sometimes show them how to fold a flag properly and do they'll ask us a little show and tell, little questions, hey, what was it like? And very similar to what we're doing now, but it's...
I think that the more people understand, especially younger generations understand what's really going on, the more in a minute it could inspire somebody to just change their life. It just could change their life, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful to hear this, and the fact that you spent so much time and effort in the military and being part of the American Legion and what you do. We all appreciate that.
Yeah,
We really do.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And everybody has a unique experience. But like I said, there's certain countries, and I happen to be a proponent I think a lot of countries have. It's mandatory that you join the service.
Yes, it is.
For me, I needed that kick in the butt to show me responsibility, show me discipline, show me a little bit. Now, my father was a pretty strict, at home, you're living in his house, you're going to church every Sunday with your whole, with mom and dad and the whole family, and he had his set of rules. Of course, my sisters had a whole different set of rules, where curfew, where it was kind of a double standard, because they needed to be home at a certain time, and he didn't know if I snuck out the Vanco doors. I had a little, it was like, but you mess with my baby girls, then you're in trouble. But it's just, I went off on a tangent again. I lost my train of thought. What was you were asking about? Just
basically, if is there anything else that maybe you could think of that we haven't covered here, and anything that...
No, it's just that it's a unique experience. Like I said, I think like certain countries, they have a 2-year, you're mandatory, you have to serve. And I think in this country, not saying bring the draft back, but I think look, I'm living proof of it, that, just because you go in the service doesn't mean you can't go to college or you can't go to trade school afterwards. You could still, do this, serve your country, and grow up at the same time. And now I used to look at it, I'm going to lose 4 years of my life because I'm behind the 8 ball. My buddies are all done with college, and they had started their lives and their careers, and here I am now. I'm going to college. I'm a 27-year-old graduate. But I look back, and for me, and I wouldn't have changed a thing. God put me here, and I did what I did, and I feel blessed, to have had the life, that I've had, and a good part of it is because of the service, you know, and it made me, you know, it helped me grow up, and it helped me, you know, it helped me be the person that I am today. So I have a lot to be grateful for, and the service, and I'll always be, you know, connected to the buddies that I serve with, and the captains and the officers that I served under, and yeah, it's you know, it's hard for me to, you know, expand on it, because everybody, everybody internalizes it differently, and everybody has their own unique, special experience, and I'm proud to have served, and proud to have been able to share, you know, some of my stories.
I really appreciate that. I really do. You know, that, I mean, you've told us everything about your background, and it's amazing what you've done, and we really appreciate it, and you should be very proud. You should be very proud.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again for your service. And thanks for coming on the show.
No, thank you. Thanks for opening up your home, and for doing this with not just for me, but the other veteran stories, and I look forward to seeing, you know, some of the ones that I need to get caught up on, because I know there's a couple of good ones that I've missed, but I'd like to, you know, kind of that South River, you know, history, and I know the guys I probably met, you know, at Memorial Day parades and stuff, but I didn't know their story. Like I enjoyed Frank's story a couple weeks ago when
Frank Kubicki,
yeah, Frank Kubicki, and I didn't know that, you know, he did what he did. You know, I knew him from the Legion, and my story was kind of, you know, what I knew, what we did together, but it was nice to see what his story was prior to
and it's nice to have any other veterans that might be interested in coming on the show and talking with us.
Yeah.
And I want to thank, you know,
I survived. She doesn't bite. Chrissy doesn't bite, and I survived. I was scared. She chased me for a couple years to do this, and I avoided it as long as I could. So it's no, but please do it. Please share your story, and
we really want to thank Stosh for coming on. You did a great job. You're terrific. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you everybody for joining us again for another segment of our veterans and their stories. And we want to wish everybody a blessed day, and God bless America to everybody.
God bless. Take care.